we'll get started here now. All right, perfect. So, as everybody knows, today is going to be very much psychology focused. Okay. At the end of the day, right, especially nowadays, I would say is that psychology is like one, if not the most important aspect of being a trader, whether you're manually trading or whether you're, automating, right? At the end of the day, manual or even automation, you guys still have to be not only in the right headspace, but also have the right process and take the proper steps to actually implement any of the systems, again, whether it's manual or automated, basically implementing those systems in a way that makes sense and has proper risk management, so on and so forth, right? So that's what we're going to kind of go over here today. Like I said, at the end of the day, I want to make sure that everybody has a very straightforward and realistic expectation, understanding of how psychology does come into play. Okay, and this here that I'm showing on the chart on TradingView is basically, like, I would say, one of the more important steps that you guys can always review and always have in the back of your mind when it comes to that psychology aspect, and that the ultimate goal of trying to be profitable in the long run, right? One thing that I think definitely doesn't help is the bad practices given by what I like to refer to as Instagram gurus and traders on Instagram that are selling, the lifestyle, right? I have a McLaren, I have a Lamborghini, and I just happen to trade. If you want to know how I trade, purchase my course, right? And it's, pre-recorded videos a majority of the time, 99% of the time, right? I would say it's things that you guys can find basically anywhere on YouTube for completely free, right? And naturally and understandably, some people will be like, oh well, what about the boot camp? Like, you guys charged us for the boot camp, right? I think that the big difference between something like what I'm talking about and something specifically like the boot camp is that you guys aren't paying so much for the information, right? Because if I wanted to make a couple pre-recorded videos and send them to you guys and all that, I can do that, right? But what you guys are paying for is me teaching you that information in real time while then opening up questions and examples and all that, which ultimately is going to be the biggest thing, right? Because if it was someone that's just going to do pre-recorded videos, 99% of the time, you don't also then have access to them directly to ask questions, to reiterate things, to explain things in a different way, type of thing, right? Similarly to how you guys, basically have almost direct access to me, right? At the end of the day, there's a really, really big difference, in my opinion. Whether you feel that way or not, that's perfectly fine. But again, I think that there's a big difference between what this bootcamp does and what we teach and what we try to share, not only, with the realities of trading, but also like the proper process versus really anywhere else, I would think, that has like that course type of, pre-recorded video type of thing. But like I said, we'll go right into it. So we're going to go over every point, right? This is basically the main focus I want to stick to today. And it basically goes over every aspect of, the mind of a trader, I would say. Okay. So the number one point, and you guys know this because I've talked about it multiple times, not only, in the boot camps, but also in the YouTube live trading, and basically anything that you see or have a recording of me talking about, things like this or in this specific topic, even more so with QuantView specifically, right? Whereas number one, is from the start that traders are successful. They're committed to doing the needed work to overcome the learning curve, right? I think that a lot of people have an expectation of coming into something, specifically QuantView, and there not being a learning curve that they have to get over, right? And then because there's a learning curve where they, God forbid, have to do a little bit of work or a little bit of research on, the system that they ultimately invested in, right? Then they like take the step back and like they get lazy and, they don't spend the time to actually learn how to do it properly. And then it bites them in the ass 6 months later when they haven't made a single dollar and they see everybody else making money, right? So the number one thing I always say is you have to be a constant learner. Even me myself in the situation and the part of the career of my trading career that I'm in currently, even me myself, I am still learning and doing new things almost every single day, right? You learn something new every day when you're trading a live strategy. You learn something new every day when you see price move. You learn something new every day when you see how price reacts to certain economic news or certain economic data, right? Nothing in the past will ever be similar or exactly the same as anything going forward, right? That will never happen. Okay, there's too many different variables, too many different, ways that things can go to say, hey, this happened exactly like this today, so it's going to happen exactly like this tomorrow. That's never going to be the case no matter what. Okay. And then that also goes into the second point where profitable traders develop a trading system with a positive expectancy model. Positive expectancy just means that profitability aspect, the profit ratio, right? When it comes to your trading, how profitable can you expect to be over a long period of time, right? And you guys can see that like in the what's it called, like the results page. If you're on like Tradebate, for example, it'll show you an expectancy directly on your Tradebate account, right? In that dashboard, and that expectancy specifically, what that shows is the like the profitability of the strategy, right? And you'll see that expectancy, and it's either going to be a positive or a negative number. Okay, and obviously, being a positive number, you want it to obviously, be something that you can find consistently versus, being a negative number, right? And then going to three, traders are able to develop a trading system that fits their own personality, right? This is a very important part of this section, right? Their own personality, their own risk tolerance, right? And return goals have the best odds of long-term success. Okay, but importantly, personality, risk tolerance, just like what I've said and shared with the manual system, right? Doesn't matter how understanding or easy the strategy is that I teach you guys, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, everybody is going to make that specific manual strategy that I teach, they're going to make it their own. Whether they're trading a different asset, or maybe they find a different set of settings that works better for them, or maybe they trail their stop loss a little bit differently, or maybe they look for the entries a little bit differently. Ultimately, you guys will slowly develop, right? As you're new, you'll use it a little bit more closer to how I use it. But as time progresses and you get more comfortable with the system and you find your own way of trading, you're ultimately going to find your own system within the strategy it is that we teach, right? With the manual system. Okay. But that's just something that's going to happen naturally, right? That's something that will come with the development of a strategy and actually sticking to a strategy long enough to actually, receive and learn that data and see the differences, day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out, right? And then step four, or point four, profitable traders express their trading systems through trading plans to execute the process in real time, step by step. Same exact thing that I do, that I preach, that I show you guys in the manual system, the live trading. I go over every single morning pre-market. I have a plan going in to the market. I have a plan of, hey, this is where I'm looking to buy. This is where I'm looking to sell. If this happens, I may be willing to do this. These are the specific areas that I'm definitely not looking for trades in, no matter what, whatsoever, right? All of those things you have to take into account, because every single day or every trading day is going to be different than the day before or the week before or the month before or the year before. Okay. Number five, they maintain enough self-control to overcome their egos and emotions. Ego is the biggest detriment when it comes to psychology to any trader, right? And what I mean by that is people think that, oh, I've been trading for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. or, I've lost so much money and, it's got to be my turn now, right? The market does not owe you anything whatsoever, right? The market giveth and the market taketh, right? The only thing you can control is how much it takes. And that's why we use proper risk sizing, proper risk management, proper leverage, proper contracts, proper stop losses, right? So that when we are struggling, when maybe we're not seeing the market as clearly or as straightforward, as we did last week or last month, right? It's not so negatively affecting us to the point where we're losing ground and all the hard work that we've put in for the past, month or 2 months, right? And you see that with prop firms even more, where, you'll have someone who's profitable, they'll pass an evaluation, they'll, get a PA account, and then they'll be, $500 from being able to request their first payout ever. And then all of a sudden, they lose the account a day later, right? Because they take a loss that they feel like they should have won, right? And their ego takes over. They feel like they should have won a trade, or they'll say like, oh well, that was a losing trade, so this one has to be a winning trade, right? And then they'll take another trade, and then it puts them more in a hole, and then they get pissed and like, fuck this, this isn't supposed to go this way or whatever, and you keep trading, and then all of a sudden you went from passing an eval to then getting to a funded account and then getting within $50 of a payout over the span of a month and a half. And then in one day, you tilt so bad that now all of a sudden you're back to where you started. It just one day. All it takes is one bad day for you to lose all your money, whether it's in a prop firm or a cash account, right? And the only person that can control that is you. And the best way to control that is by basically, point six, the very, very next one, right? Tracking your results and learning lessons from both past mistakes and success, right? The only way you can improve is by measuring the past. Measuring, hey, like you guys have, I've always told you guys on Fridays, specifically speaking, I lower risk for whatever reason. Historically, me specifically as a manual trader, I don't trade as well on Fridays. And I've shared that with you guys time and time again. That's the reason why I scaled down. I'll still trade it because, I can still make money on a Friday, and some Fridays I do. But when it comes to like losing days, when they do happen, those are my biggest losing days for whatever reason, right? Whether it's, mentally the end of the week, or, I want to, start my weekend early, or I don't want to be trading, or I don't feel like trading that day because like, maybe I'm tired or mentally drained, at the end of the week, whatever the reason is, right? I was able to measure that Fridays weren't my best days. What did I do? I either don't trade Fridays, especially if there's a news event, or, no news event whatsoever. And if I do trade Fridays, I cut my risk or cut my sizing in half. That alone has helped me become more profitable over the long run. You may not see a big difference, week to week, maybe in the first couple months, but after a year, you'll see, hey, instead of taking, 50% losing days on Fridays, now instead, it's more like 20%. And those losing days are a lot less. So now the profits that I made during the other days of the week end up being much more, right? And again, into 7, profitable traders are humble and seek profits as their goal, not trying to prove that they're right or show off predictions, right? I don't care if I'm right or wrong. When we're trading live, I don't care if I lose a trade, right? You guys have seen me. I'm very nonchalant about it. I don't, I don't care. Losing a trade or avoiding losses avoided all losses, I would say. Avoiding all losses should not be your primary goal in trading, because that will never happen. That is not something that you'll ever be able to achieve, no matter what you do. I don't care who you are. I don't care what strategy you're running. I don't care how you're trailing, anything. So that's why it kind of like irks me when people are like, oh, 90% win rate. Is like, how can we make this a higher win rate? It's like, why do you need a higher win rate? Why? Because you can't handle losing 1 out of 10 trades? If you can't handle losing 1 out of 10 trades, I could only imagine 3 out of 10 trades or 4 out of 10 trades, right? And even still, some of the more profitable strategies I've ever seen have been like a 60% win rate, a 65% win rate, right? And people will see that number and they'll say, oh, that's not good enough. You must not be good at trading because you don't have a 95% win rate, right? And it ties into the fact where it's like, okay, yeah, you have a high win rate, but what's your risk reward? I bet you it's negative. Anything in the 90s is a negative risk reward. Has to be. Especially if you're talking about like an actual large enough data set to get a proper win rate. Because a win rate over 10 trades or even 100 trades is not, it's nothing, right? I'm talking about like 1,000 trades, 10,000 trades. What's your win rate over that span of data? That's more accurate, right? Because even a thousand trades or 100 trades is not enough to give you, have your algorithm running through every like market cycle throughout the year alone, let alone every year to year, right? So, you know, again, tying into it, like you have to be humble. You can't have a big ego in trading. At the end of the day, when you're trading, the moment you click buy or sell, right, and you have your set stop loss, that money should already be gone in your mind, right? You click buy, you're willing to lose this amount of money on this trade setup. That money is gone. It is no longer in your account, right? And that can help some of you guys kind of detach yourself from the dollar amount or from how much money you're in drawdown or so on and so forth, right? And that, that ties into where it's like, people, especially like even with the automating, and you can tell how much experience someone has with trading when, QZeus, right? The amount of people that I saw bitch and complain after one single loss coming off of a 12 trade win streak was astronomical. That tells me you have zero idea what you're doing as a trader. You have no business being a trader. And that's just me being blatantly honest, right? Because at the end of the day, if one loss is something that you're worried about, especially after having a 12 trade win streak, then you shouldn't be a trader, right? And again, that's just my honest opinion. Because at the end of the day, if you can't take one loss, you can't take two. If you can't take lose two losses, you can't take 10. So then what are you going to do when the market doesn't give you, now, that 8-10 trade win streak that you're now apparently expecting from the market, right? Now all of a sudden, you take one loss and you're like, oh, this algorithm is terrible. I'm not going to trade it anymore. And it's literally the reason why you bought ATS, right? QZeus is the reason why anybody bought ATS. I don't care what they say. And then one loss and all of a sudden, boom, oh, I'm not going to trade this anymore. This thing sucks, right? How does that make sense? Like, how does someone expect to find any sort of consistency or profitability if they can't do the simplest thing of sticking to a single strategy for more than a couple months, right? Like, that's just the sad reality, is that most people's issue with trading isn't even like a lack of information or a lack thereof of, a strategy that works. It's just like, a lack of mental capacity, a lack of like long-term patience. That's all it is, right? And again, like I said, when I bring these things up, it's not to like point fingers or anything. It's just to give you guys like a valid, very real, expectation that you guys can now go into the market with, and it's going to help you immensely, right? Because if you're 2-3 years into trading and you're still worried about a loss or a losing streak or a losing day, like, you shouldn't be a trader. Go do something else, because you're never going to be satisfied if you can't get over it, right? And it's very, very also, real when I say that, trading's not for everybody. It really is not. Some people just they can't grasp the, not because of an intelligence thing, but they just can't grasp the needs that trading, takes from an individual, or that it requires from an individual. And that's fine, right? But the whole point of like specifically this psychology session is to like teach you and tell you and show you these things so you guys can then also kind of, look at yourself and say, hey, you know what, I've done that, he's right, it's happened to me 1,000 times, right? And then now going forward with information, with this recording of this session, play this to yourself once a week. And at some point, it's going to be ingrained into the back of your mind, my voice telling you, don't be stupid. Don't care about a losing day today or a losing week or a single losing month, right? Care about, okay, how did that losing month affect the last 6 months or the last year, right? How did last year go? What's my goals for this year? Not this week, not this month. What are my goals for this year? What are my goals 5 years from now? What are my goals 10 years from now? Right? In order to think long term and have long term success, you need to do the little things consistently, the boring things consistently, day in, day out. If you can't even, again, same thing where I've said, if you can't be consistent with just the most basic thing of using the same strategy, then how are you going to be consistent in making money? Right? It doesn't make sense. Like it's correlated, and then it goes into, point number 8. Traders that make money have an edge of patience. They're patient with their setup. They're patient with letting their winning trades run, right? The only thing they don't have patience with is having a losing trade become overly large or more unnecessarily large than what it needs to be, right? That's part of the reason why with the manual strategy specifically, we have predetermined small stop losses, right? We only take trades that make sense when it comes to a risk to reward. If the closest target or possible target where it makes sense that price can hit and reverse on us is 20 points away and our stop loss is 40 points based off of what our system is giving us, then we don't take the trade, right? And if you take the trade and you lose, then that's on you for breaking the rules, right? And if you don't take the trade and it ends up being a winning trade and going more than 20 points, then so be it, right? Again, you only control how much you lose. You can never control how much you make. And that's the reality of it, whether, again, you're a new trader, an experienced trader, or you're, trading manually or with automation. Okay. And then, going to step 9, they have no issues taking their trading signals, right? They say, hey, this is where my trading signal is giving a buy or a sell. These confluences are also lining up, which are also part of my trading signal, right? And then I enter. I don't care what happens after that because I have confidence in the strategy. I have faith in the fact that the trading plan will work itself out in the long run. I don't care about today. I don't care about this week. I don't care about this month. I care about 11 months, 12 months from now, right? Because the only way to be, profitable in the long run, again, is to, whenever you are losing, make sure that those losses or those losing trades are as minimal and small as possible, right? Because if they end up being larger, just because you couldn't help yourself but extend your stop loss or give it more room to breathe in places where it doesn't make sense that if price went there, it invalidates the trade, right? Like it just doesn't make sense. Like that's not being consistent. You can't change something based off of how you're feeling in the moment. And that goes with both entries and exits and with automation, same thing, right? And then, with number 10, same exact thing that we talked about with the manual strategy, big wins, small losses, and break evens, right? But you eliminate big trading losses. And how do you do that? Proper position sizing and trade management, which is what we review and continuously badger you guys on about, which is risk and sizing. Those are the two most important things that will make or break a trader in the sense of actually implementing a system. Because it's the only two things that you can actually control in the markets. Okay. And then step number 11 or point number 11, tune out outside noise. You shouldn't give a shit about any Instagram influencers. Oh my God, they bought an SVJ. They must be so good at trading. No, that's not what that means. You know how much money you have to be making from trading to purchase an SVJ? A lot more money than what it is that they're trading with, right? And what they're making. You know, like it doesn't make sense for the houses and the multiple cars and the jewelry and all this bullshit that they're like, oh, look what I got with my trading money. They didn't get shit with their trading money. You know what they got that? You know what they got to pay for that? The 2,000 people that signed up for their $2,500 2-day boot camp. That's what got them that car. That's what got them the house, right? Because when they trade, like for one, most don't show like results or don't even trade live, right? Some will be like, oh, I give signals for free, right? But then they'll have a signal show up, and then all of a sudden, somehow it's a losing trade, and after it's a losing the trade, they'll be like, oh, by the way, I didn't actually take this because of this reason. But then all of a sudden, the ones that are winners, like, oh yeah, no, I actually did take this one. They were both signals that I was taking, and I marked out, but for whatever reason, hindsight, I just knew that this one wasn't going to be a winner because of this reason, and they'll give some bullshit reason, you know, and it just goes with everything, right? Like the showcase of things that have nothing to do with actually being a trader is just it's not something you guys need to focus on, right? You need to focus on yourself, focus on your own development, on your own risk management, on your own trading entries and exits, on your own sizing, on building your own prop firm or building your own cash account, right? The less you focus on other people, the more you focus on yourself, the better you're going to be in the long run, right? And then the last one, traders that make it long term in the markets are committed to being lifelong learners, right? Dan is a very good learner. He's been in every single boot camp every single month so far, right? And all he's doing is reinforcing everything that he's learned from the first boot camp to the second boot camp to the third boot camp. I mean, I can ask him right now. I promise you, Dan's learned something new every single boot camp. You know, and some people will be like, oh, I went the 30-day, which should be fine, right? If you took really, really good notes and you're watching the videos consistently and you're paying attention, all you really need is one, right? But to then say, okay, I know everything that I need to know is incorrect. Because even me myself, I don't know everything about trading, right? I don't know everything about stocks or options or the market or economic data or news. I don't know everything, but I bet you that if there is something new or something that works or something that I see, that I can learn, it's something that I learn and then I ultimately end up teaching you guys, right? Because again, same thing. The markets 20 years from today, 20 years ago, are a completely different landscape than what they are 10 years ago, or what they are 5 years ago, or even what they were last year, right? It's forever changing. And that's the reason why there's never any guarantee. The only thing you do is, again, find something that works more than often, more than 50% of the time, even with a 1-to-1 risk to reward ratio, something winning more than 50% of the time is profitability, especially if you use proper sizing. But people want to go from not making any money to having a 90%, 80% win rate with an average risk reward of 1-to-3 or 1-to-4. And that doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen in the first year. That doesn't happen in the first 2 years or 3 years. Like that happens over a very long period of time, right? And that's where then you see the fruits of your labor of being consistent and building that system. Then now 5-10 years later, absolutely nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed is the access to capital that you have. Because some people will say, oh, if I could get, I'm going to go automated because, I can't seem to pass an evaluation, but, if I had a funded account, I know I can make money. That doesn't make any sense. If you can't properly trade and pass an evaluation, you have absolutely zero chance in the funded stage. and you have absolutely zero reason to purchase an instant funded account, right? Same thing with people like, oh, like, I only have $1,000, but if I had $1 million, I can trade and be profitable. Like what? Like that makes no sense. Like you can't trade $1,000, but you think you could trade $1 million or $10,000. Like that's where the experience level or like that psychology aspect of it comes into play, where it's like, you know, how can you expect to properly manage something larger than what you already proven to yourself you can't manage right now? You know, and that's the reason why like most people, those don't succeed because they think that their issue is that they don't have enough capital to trade with. And I promise you, ask them, hey, where's your trading journal? Or hey, like, how long have you been tracking your trades? Or hey, like, what, explain to me like step by step, like, what's your pre-market analysis? What's your during market analysis? Like, what are things that correlate with your trading entries and exits? What are things that like invalidate your trade and trading entrances or trade entries and exits? And they won't be able to answer any of those questions, but they'll quote unquote, and I'm using air quotes with my fingers right now, they'll have been a trader or been trading for 3 or 5 years on and off, and they haven't made money, and you wonder why. Like they just told you, because they don't know what they're doing. They don't even bother to go through step one, right? They don't even bother to learn or overcome the learning curve. People on ATS who've been on here for 6 months and are still asking about how to create an alert. That's a prime example of why people are not successful using ATS when it's a program that's proven to be successful if used the correct way. And it's even worse with the manual system because now you even have to worry about actual entries and exits. There's more going on. You have to be more active. You have to be in the right headspace more often, right? Like even with me, sometimes like there's sometimes some days out of the week I'm just like not in it. I'm not into it. I can't trade. I can't sit at the computer for an hour, and give it my 100% undivided attention. So what do? I trade demo. Or maybe I don't trade at all that day. And do I feel bad or feel FOMO when I see other people making money? No, because I don't care about other people. And neither should you guys. Like other people should be the absolute last thing that you think about when you're talking about or referencing your own trading, because everybody has their own journey through trading, their own background, their own access to capital, their own experience level, right? To a point where everybody's going to be different on how that long that time takes. How much work are you willing to put in? How much of a sponge are you willing to be intellectually? How much internal viewing are you doing? And what I mean by that is how often do you look into yourself or look in the mirror and actually point out the things that you're doing wrong and then actively work to fix those things? Because some people will be like, oh yeah, they'll make jokes about it, like, oh, like I just lost my accounts again, but I was over risked, and I knew I was over risked, but I just didn't care, because I wanted to pass evals fast. Like what? Like you knew you were doing something wrong and you still did it anyways? Just mind boggling. Absolutely mind boggling. Baffling, I would say. Right? And then you wonder, oh, I've been trading for, 7 years, and I've had all these people, like these, teachers try to teach me trading, and I'm down $50,000 over those 5 years, and I just can't seem to figure it out. And like I feel for them because obviously they don't know better, but there's a certain point where you have to realize that trading itself is an individual sport. Me clicking buy or sell on my accounts has absolutely zero effect on you and your accounts, and vice versa. Your pressing buy and sell has absolutely zero effects on me and my accounts. Even if we're trading the same strategy or the same system or using the same algorithm, ultimately there's always going to be different outcomes because we're going to be deciding to use it in different ways, especially with the manual systems, right? And it's on you guys to, when I talk about these things or I make, these points, if you hear something that I say that, it references you or it, includes you as an individual, then your direct response should not be, oh, fuck this guy, he's talking shit about me or he thinks less of me or whatever, whatever. Your response should be, huh, he makes a good point. Maybe I should not do that anymore, right? Maybe I should make a change or maybe I should improve this. And you know what? Let me just give him the benefit of the doubt. Let me do what he's telling me to do or what he's saying that he does and see how it works out for me. Right? And it goes to even the smallest things like sizing. I've literally told people this is the sizing that I use. This is what works. This is what's proven to work. And they'll be like, oh, well, what if I do this instead? Like, do you think this would work too? Like, brother, I don't fucking know. I don't do that. How would I know? It's not what I just told you that I do. So, how would I know if that works? Right? And then they'll still do it. They'll still do that other thing that they thought of that they think is going to work with absolutely no reason to believe it's going to work. Whether again it's sizing or running an algo or an automation system or a set of settings, there's absolutely no data for, right? Like that's the type of stuff that I'm like, wow, holy shit. Like you're gonna be in my DMs 4 months from now, asking the same questions, and I'm gonna give you the same exact answer every single time, right? And it's just, again, that's just how it is. Sadly, it's nothing you can control or nothing you can do, but for some reason, everybody kind of wants. I wouldn't say they're handheld, but they don't want to go through the work that it very obviously takes in order to get to the place where they want to get to, right? And even if you could almost guarantee it, some people still wouldn't do that. They still wouldn't put in the necessary work needed to get to that point. Surprisingly, or I would say unsurprisingly, right? Somehow, just nope, I don't want to do that for whatever reason. I don't want to do that, right? And like I said, I know I'm going on a little bit of a rant here, but I'm just trying to give you guys more and more examples of how baffling it can be. So don't be those people. For those of you watching, whether it's a recording or YouTube area or Dan, don't be those people. Dan, you've been doing good. I know that you've been getting a lot better at things since the first boot camp. And that's part of it. But yeah, I mean, that's basically everything I think that I covered or I wanted to cover. Unless you guys have other questions about anything. You have, yeah. And I've seen you post some of the things that you've been posting. Small increments each day, and it adds up. It definitely does. Or reminds me of the manual system, trading for a specific dollar amount in a day. Are there rules you have, like two failing trades and you're done for the day or something by along those lines that you use? And do you also have take profits and stop losses in trade evade or quant view to lock you down when you hit that? So for the manual system, it's anywhere between 2 to 3 trades. Losing trades. I don't kind of try and max myself out at. Most times when it comes to like entries, if that's how many I'll see that I actually like and want to work with within the hour that I trade anyways. So that also helps. But you can do it multiple ways. You can do it like a specific dollar amount or a specific number of trade opportunities or a specific time frame as well, right? Like if you want to take all the entries from 9:35 to 11:30, like that's a way to keep yourself accountable, right? Should you still have a specific like max dollar amount loss in case it's just, a complete shit day? Yes, of course, right? But there's multiple different ways to do it. For me, like I tried to either limit myself to a specific number of trades, or I use my time string, because you guys know that I don't really take trades after 10:30. So really, I'm only trading an hour in a day, right? And then when it comes to automation, it depends. Like QZeus, I don't have a take profit or day stop loss. I let QZeus trade how it's supposed to trade. Something I do have like a daily take profit for is like Q Chronos Evo or Evo Bear, right? Like if there's something that like there's specific data where it's like each day, specifically something that trades as much as that one, where it's like it's a specific like dollar amount per number of contracts that it hits like pretty consistently. Let's say at a 95% day win rate, right? I'm gonna stick to that. And then as time progresses, I'll scale up with that. But I'm not going to over risk or oversize to get someplace quicker, because the time that I spend losing money making the wrong decisions will put me back further and make it take longer than just going about it the right way to begin with both sizing, and numbers of trades, or over trading or under trading, whatever the case may be. But that's more or less what I do. Like I said, QZeus, I don't have a day loss or day win max. I control that with my sizing, right? Q Chronos Evo Bear, I have the daily take profit based off of the sizing itself that I decide to use. Whatever sizing you guys use, you correlate it the same way if you want. And then manual system, again, I'm more so focused on the number of trades, or like the opportunity or the quality of the trades, I would say. And then the time frame as well. Those are like my barriers per se. And obviously, saying it and doing it are two different things. So just because you guys are like, oh, I'm only going to take 3 trades a day, doesn't necessarily mean that it's that easy. You guys still have to follow those guidelines and control yourself, right? Because if you can't control yourself in one of the most simplest aspects of trading, which is how many trades are you going to take that day? If that's something you can't control, you can't hope to control anything else, right? So you have to work at it like step by step, like fix one thing first, then fix the other thing, right? Usually when people are not successful or not profitable trading, they have a good amount of things going on that is keeping them from that, right? The step after unprofitable is break even. You're a break even trader. You have good weeks, you have bad weeks. Ultimately, you're not making or losing money. If you're in that stage of trading, you're in a good spot. You're in a spot that most people never get to, right? And when you're a break even trader, there's maybe 1 or 2 changes you need to find and change or make changes to that will get you over that hump to now the profitability stage. Because if you're break even, if you could trade and you can, take as much money out of the market as you are losing to it, there's 1 or 2 small changes that you need to make in order to then get over that hump where now you're winning your winners, or the amount of money that you're making is more than what you're losing, right? But you have to get to that second step first of that break even before anything, right? And then once you learn everything that we just talked about, then you could be like, okay, I'm going to apply this to a prop firm, or I'm going to apply this to a cash account. And then that's your test. Your evaluation for your prop account is your test to see if you actually are following the rules that you've allotted and set for yourself. And if you fail the evaluation, more often than not, you didn't follow the rules. If you pass the evaluation, then you follow the rules pretty well, right? Now duplicate that, which is what you have to do anyways for a cash account. Duplicate what you just did during the evaluation. Because most people pass evaluation, then all of a sudden they're funded, they're like a completely different trader, right? Which again makes no sense, you know? So that's really, the big points that I wanted to kind of hammer home today specifically, about, what it is that I wanted to like focus on, right? Because everything else comes with experience, right? At the end of the day, there's just some things that the only thing you can learn is through experience. And that's just the reality of it, right? But you have to stick with things long enough and be consistent with things long enough to actually let that experience start to build. Because every time you switch a strategy or switch an algorithm, like you're now starting from scratch when it comes to experience, right? Because now this is something new, data, new sets of rules, new targets, new whatever, that now you're relearning, right, to fit to that specific algorithm or strategy. And then what, you stick with it for a month, maybe 2 months, and then you switch again. So basically you're telling me that you're changing your system or the way you're doing things 5 to 6 times per year, right? And then also expecting to find consistency. That doesn't vibe. That doesn't make sense to me, right? So again, the best way to get to that level, right, is to find that consistency. Even if you're taking the same trades and you're not making any money, find the consistency in entries, find the consistency in exits, and everything else will kind of build on its own. All right. But that's going to be it for me, for my talking. Unless you guys have any questions. If not, we'll continue tomorrow. Obviously, we have live trading tomorrow, Monday. Tomorrow, I think, is rollover week, if I'm not mistaken. I think it might be rollover week. I'll have to double check. If this week is rollover week, then let's see, the 1st to the 5th. If this week is rollover week, that's going to be kind of ass. I don't think it is. I think it might be next week, but we'll see. There might be one, if rollover week is this week, there might be 1 or 2 days out of the week that we don't trade. Yeah, we're still on December chart right now. You'll see. You'll have like Trade-of-8 will prompt you, or NinjaTrader will prompt you to auto roll over, whichever one has the most volume. It'll auto roll over too. But yeah, I mean, Monday, PMI, Tuesday, nothing, Wednesday, ADP and PMI, PCE on Friday, unemployment on Thursday. Yeah. I'll double check and see if it's rollover week, but I'll send an announcement about it. But live trading tomorrow, 9:15 a.m., same time as usual. We're gonna be on NinjaTrader tomorrow, and then I'm just gonna show my entire screen like how I'm doing here on what's it called, on Discord. So it'll show like the NinjaTrader and everything. Okay. But yeah, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Like I said, if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to message me in the bootcamp chat. Okay. The recording, I'm going to try my best to upload it tonight. I'm going to message Condor and let him know. But I'm going to start compiling it now after we finish, after we hang up here. Okay. But I'll see you guys tomorrow morning for live trading. If you guys have questions, like I said, feel free to reach out. Please, please, please. And yeah, and I'll see you guys in the Discord later on, and then I'll see you in live training tomorrow. All right, guys? All right, everybody. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day, okay? Take care. Have a good night.